It's really tough for any welterweight to overcome.
Well, let's see if he can make good use to it. Let's pick up the action. We welcome you to Tokyo, Japan. Bob Papa along with Wally Matthews, the referee, Julio Cesar Alvarado for tonight's bout. The WBA welterweight title on the line. Mark Breland in the white trunks, Fujio Ozaki. In the gold trunks, Ozaki is ranked number 1 by the WBA, number 3 by the WBC in the welterweight division. And he looks a lot like Roberto Duran.
Well, at least that's what his friends tell him, isn't it? Cites that as one of the reasons why he began boxing.
Mark Breland, who had a very, very effective fight against Mauro Martelli, knocking him out in round number 2, looking to continue on the comeback trail after knee surgery earlier this year.
Right, and Breland on a bit of an international tour here, fought Martelli in Switzerland, now taking on Ozaki here in Tokyo. Supposedly going to fight Lloyd Hunnigan in England if he gets past this one.
This is round 1, scheduled for 12, and Breland comes out storming.
And the Breland that we saw against Martelli, Bob, you recall, relied heavily on his left jab until he found an opening for that right hand. And Ozaki is another fighter who's very susceptible to a left jab because he's very easy to hit.
Breland looks a little more active in this fight as opposed to the Martelli fight. Maybe just a little bit more confident now that he has that one under his belt.
Well, let's remember now, Breland was suffering the after effects of the flu in that bout. Also, it was his first fight off the knee injury. And I think he expected a different fight from Martelli than what he got. Martelli had been a tough opponent for Simon Brown. Now, Ozaki, Breland saw against Starling, and he's pretty much a straightforward fighter.
Round number 1, scheduled for 12 in Tokyo, Japan. Mark Breland, the champion. Fujio Ozaki, the challenger. Ozaki 24-5 with 15 career knockouts. Breland 25-1-1 with 18 knockouts.
And Breland getting into a brawl early. This is not at all what he did against Martelli. And that one he'd used basically just his jab in the first round until he found the opening early in the second. Here he's trading punches right away.
Ozaki pretty much right there in front of Breland, and Mark able to pick his spots.
Well, that's exactly the way Ozaki fought Marlon Starling, and as we had seen Marlon against Young Kil Chung, Starling is content to allow opponents like this to survive as long as they want to. He hit Ozaki at will, never really went for the KO, and the fight went 12 rounds. Breland, a different kind of a fighter, probably will look to get Ozaki out of there.
This is round number 1, scheduled for 12. Fujio Ozaki of Japan in the yellow trunks. Mark Breland of the United States of America from Brooklyn in the white trunks. He is the WBA welterweight champion, making a title defense in Tokyo.
And this is the third defense of the WBA title that Breland won back in February over Soon Sung Lee of Korea. Had not successfully defended his previous WBA title, being knocked out by Starling in his first defense back in 1987.
Good round so far for Mark Breland.
And again, pumping that left jab out, which he uses basically as a probe.
Well, you hear the crowd roaring, but Ozaki did not really land a punch to Breland there. Breland against Ozaki. We now pause for a regional break. You're watching Sports Channel America's Pro Boxing Tour. Welcome you back to Tokyo. Bob Papa along with Wally Matthews. We begin round number 2. Mark Breland, the WBA welterweight champion, defending his title against Fujio Ozaki. You know, one thing about Breland, Wally, he's very patient in the ring, very poised, and, you know, outside of the ring, he's somewhat of a showman. He's interested in acting. He's been in videos. He's been in movies. He wants to get involved in acting someday, but in the ring, he's pretty professional.
Even though he doesn't get involved in those activities, he's a very low-key guy outside the ring as well. One of the most polite boxers you'll ever meet, very even-tempered. There's that big right hand from Breland. But he's just basically, the Mark Breland you see in the ring is really the Mark Breland who you see outside the ring. Very even-tempered guy, very placid almost.
All business inside that ring.
And right now, Ozaki, as we had seen against Martelli, we see another Breland opponent who's not moving side to side, who is just standing straight up and taking that Breland jab, which is not a good thing to do. You know, even in the fight that Breland lost to Starling by knockout, he broke Starling's nose with that jab because he hit him so many times.
Breland at 26 years of age, 2 years younger than Ozaki. Well, you know, Starling and Breland have fought 2 times. Will we see them fight for a 3rd time, Wally?
You know, Bob, they were scheduled to fight back in April, and Starling pulled out. He says, look, I've beaten the guy twice. Actually, he beat him once. The second one was a draw. Because I have nothing to prove against Breland again. I don't want to fight him. It's always a tough fight for Starling to fight Breland because of the reach advantage and all. You know what? The 2 fights were so deadly dull. I don't care if we ever see a 3rd fight there. Breland says he would like to see it again.
Sure. This is round number 2, scheduled for 12. Wild miss by Ozaki. What kind of effect does this have on a fighter like Breland, Wally, constantly fighting overseas?
Well, you know, there's a reason why he's doing this. And the reason basically is that he can't get the money from the American networks to fight in the United States right now against these types of opponents. One thing I have to say about Mark Breland, and it's not his fault, he's been very protected throughout his career. You realize that he won 2 titles without ever beating a fighter ranked in the top 10 before he beat Martelli. Except for the fact that Harold Bolbrecht was a #1 contender, although not regarded well at all, and Sung Sung Lee was a #2 contender who no one had ever heard of. Breland had never beat a ranked fighter on the way up to those. And then when he fought Starling, who was considered the first legitimate welterweight, he got knocked out. So Breland, for that reason, has a reputation of being a very protected fighter.
15 seconds to go in round number 2. Mark Breland in the white trunks, Fujio Ozaki in the yellow trunks. More after this. Bob Papa and Wally Matthews welcome you back to Tokyo, Japan. Mark Breland in the white trunks defending his WBA welterweight title against Fujio Ozaki. We start round number 3, scheduled for 12, and Ozaki lands his first telling blows of the bout.
And that's the first time, really, that Ozaki's been able to get past the jab of Mark Breland, Bob.
You know, you mentioned earlier before about Breland being protected along the way and not having that many tough fights. Isn't that really the role, though, to get your fighter as much money as you can without a lot of injury?
Well, sure. You know, it really depends on who's talking about it. A lot of Breland's prospective opponents in the welterweight division have knocked the fighter for it, and they're justified to do so. But in fact, the role of a good manager is to get as much money for his fighter as possible and not expose him to very much risk. And, you know, manager Shelley Finkel has really done that with Breland. The guy has won 2 world titles, hasn't been in very many tough fights aside from the Starling bouts. Certainly can't knock the fighter for that.
Ozaki trying to get inside a bit, but Breland not letting him. And other than that little flurry at the beginning of round number 3, which appeared to startle Breland, not so much by the punching power, but by the fact that he hit him.
That's right, by the very fact that Ozaki was able to make that little move to the inside. So far, since then, Breland has not let him back inside.
Midway point of round number 3. Breland just trying to find the spacing, the proper spacing, the range.
Well, that's it. He knows that he's a leverage puncher and that his punches are most effective from a distance. He does not want his man close because he really can't fight inside with those long arms. His punches get smothered. You can see it right there. He wants his man arm's length or further so he can step forward with that right hand.
Julio Cesar Alvarado, the referee, separates the fighters. And Ozaki is doing something here we did not see from Martelli at all. He's at least tying Breland up when he's getting hit.
Right, Martelli seemed to go down very meekly. He just put his hands up alongside his head, went against the ropes, and waited for the fatal blow, which was not long in coming.
This is round 3. Ozaki trying to get inside, but he's taking a lot of punches to do so.
Good left hook, and I was just going to say that Breland is following his 1-2s with a left hook, which is an effective punch, and then finally he caught Ozaki solidly with it.
Under 30 seconds to go in round 3. Ozaki missing with most of those punches, and there's a bad cut now on his right eye. on Osaki's right eye.
And that must have happened from the left hook that Breland landed. You know, Ozaki had his back to us, but that was the kind of punch that could open a cut like that.
And you see blood streaming down Osaki's face as we come to the final 10 seconds of round number 3. And now referee Julio Cesar Alvarado calls timeout with approximately 2 seconds to go in round number 3. And the ringside physician will take a look at Osaki's eye. That is a bad cut.
That is a very bad cut. That's from a single punch.
Doctor says let him continue. And that's the bell to end round number 3.
Well, let's see what kind of a job they do in the corner on this cut, because that's a potential fight ender.
Ozaki cut bad near the end of round number 3. And blood is just streaming out of his right eyebrow, it appears, the top of the right eye.
So far, they seem to be treating it just with a towel. I don't know what he's got underneath there, but in the United States, they would have a Q-tip soaked in adrenaline or Avitine or some kind of a drug that coagulates the blood on that cut.
Right now, they're giving him water, and they're taking care of that, but
it's tough to tell what the cut man's doing under there. He's got a hand underneath that towel.
Probably trying to apply some pressure to slow the bleeding down.
Wow, you can see it right between the eyelid and the eyebrow, and it's very long.
You have to wonder how long this thing will go, even though Ozaki is fighting in his home country. That is a bad cut as the bell sounds to start round number 4. Mark Breland against Fujio Ozaki. Scheduled for 12.
I think it's safe to assume that that punch came from, the cut came from a punch. Because we did not see the heads come together. They've very seldom been that close. I think it came from the left hook of Breland in the 3rd round.
Oh, look at the eye. It is a mess.
Breland's just teeing off now. I doubt Ozaki's seeing very well out of that eye.
And referee Julio Cesar Alvarado will have the doctor take another look, and look at the mess, and we're only 32 seconds in.
I think
to the round.
I think he shook his head. Yes, he did. The fight is over.
It is stopped here in round number 4, unofficially 32 seconds into the round, and Mark Breland makes his 3rd straight title defense. He stops Fujio Ozaki on a bad cut. It opened up near the end of round number 3, and where that cut was, he squares